Maybe should I have the, oh, my microwave looks a mess. Hi, everybody. You're in the camera. He doesn't want to be in the camera. Hello, welcome to my kitchen. I'm Bev Cowling with Cowling's Loving Designs, and today I'm going to show you how to make my grandmother's and my mother's famous homemade potato rolls. Hey, Carla, can you see me and hear me okay? I'm so glad you're here. I turned off the overhead light in the kitchen because it had a real bad glare. Can you see okay? We put the spotlight on. I am so excited to have everybody here, and I'm really excited to show you how to make these rolls. I've had these rolls my entire life, and that's a long time, well over 6 decades now, and they are the hit of every holiday, and sometimes just because. So it seems like they're a lot of work, but they really aren't. And once you learn how to do them, they happen really quickly, and you throw them together really quickly. I've already made a batch of dough today. It's back on the stove, and it has risen up beautifully. So after we make this batch, we'll get that out, and I'll show you how I make my sandwich buns and how I make my cinnamon rolls, and I'll show you how I form my dinner rolls for Thanksgiving. But for right now, what we're going to do is we're going to start. I've got my handy little mixer here. I can't zoom very well, so I hope you can see. If you have any questions, just type them in, and we'll do our best to answer them. So I've got my KitchenAid, and let me tell you, if you don't have a heavy-duty mixer like a KitchenAid, boy, you need one. Put it on your Christmas list because it is pure gold. It does all your kneading for you. If you don't have one, you can definitely do hand kneading. I see my towels have gotten askew, so I have to fix those. Sorry, a little anal about that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I've already made my mashed potatoes because I had to make them for the earlier batch. They're a little bit cold, the leftovers. This is 1 cup of mashed potatoes. So I'm going to pop these in the microwave. And the potato water, 1½ cups of potato water from boiling the potatoes. That's gotten a little cold too, so I'm going to nuke it first and then get my yeast proofing, and then we'll heat these. So this won't take but a couple of seconds. You don't want your water, you do not want your water too hot because it will kill your yeast. So as you come in, please say hi, like my page, and share it widely. I would appreciate that. I would love to see the whole world eating these rolls because they are literally melt in your mouth to die for. So that would make me happy. I just gave it 30 seconds just to heat it up enough just to activate the yeast, because you definitely don't want it, like I said, if it's too hot, that's perfect. Okay, so now I'm going to nuke those potatoes. And you know what? It's really not vital that your potatoes be warm, but it helps mix up the shortening and everything. So here's my 1½ cups of potato water. Now, the recipe calls for 2/3 cup of sugar. So the first thing I'm going to do is put a little bit of that sugar into the water. And the reason I do that is because sugar will activate the yeast. So this is, I don't have a 2/3 cup measuring cup. I don't think they make them anymore. Here's my 1½ cups of water. I'm pouring a little bit of that sugar into there. And then the rest, I'm going to pour into my potatoes as soon as I put them in my bowl. So here we have 1 cup of potatoes, mashed potatoes, and they're in a mixing bowl. Then I will go ahead and add that 1/3 cup of sugar and 1 more. Believe me, this makes a whole lot. So when you figure it out, it's not much sugar. And the same with the salt. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and turn that on and mix that up a little bit. Now, I'm going to stir this sugar into the potato water, and I'm going to add my yeast. This is 4½ teaspoons, not tablespoons, teaspoons of yeast, which is the equivalent of 2 packages. You can use rapid rise. I do not. I use regular. I'm just going to stir that in. And while we start the rest of this recipe, this will proof up and it'll just get all nice and poofy and activated. And boy, will it make very light dough. And you'll see in a little bit when I unwrap that dough how light and fluffy that dough. I put that dough on to rise at 10 o'clock and it's already ready to use. So, okay, so I'll just set that aside. Close up my sugar because I'm done with it. So now, grab my salt. This recipe calls for a tablespoon of salt. And I know that seems like a lot of salt, but actually it isn't. And this is my salt cellar. And I use a salt cellar in my kitchen. I highly recommend it. It makes it so much easier to measure salt. However, I will caution you, if you're going to use a salt cellar, make sure you label it salt, or make sure that anybody who comes into your kitchen to help cook knows that it's salt. Because one day, I didn't know that in my mother's kitchen, and I was making fresh fruit salad, and I thought it was sugar. Needless to say, we did not have fruit salad that day. So, okay, so I'm going to mix in that salt. Okay, now, the next thing I'm going to do is add the shortening. 2/3 of a cup of shortening. I use Crisco. You can use the butter flavor. I usually don't. I don't know. It's just, you know, it's always what I've done is the plain white Crisco. But I always do use Crisco. And, but there's no reason you can't use the butter flavor. I just never buy it. You know, when I started doing these, there was no such thing. So I want to make sure I don't have too much. So here's my first 1/3 cup of shortening. And just one more. My grandmother was full-blooded Swede, and she's the one that gave us this recipe and started making them. Now, you can use milk, but I like the fact that it's water, and it worked better because I was allergic to milk when I was a child. So, you know, if you have anybody who has milk allergies, this works great. So here's my second 1/3 cup of shortening going in. And I'm done with that measuring cup. Bang, 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 huh? Now I'm going to leave this Crisco handy because I'm going to need it to grease my bowl for when I put my dough into a bowl to rise. Oh, you know what's wrong? I have a dough hook on my mixer. I'm not supposed to have the dough hook on here yet. I'm supposed to have the paddle on here. I had put the dough hook on. I have 2 dough hooks and one was longer. So I was trying out to make sure that this is the right one, and I forgot to put my paddle back. No wonder I'm having trouble getting things to mix well. That dough hook will be priceless here in a couple minutes, though. Okay, now here we go. Now we're cooking. Okay, so that's mixing up great. Look at the yeast. Can you see how it's poofing up? It is looking awesome. Okay, so next thing I want to do is I want to add 2 eggs. Now I've learned recently, I don't know if eggs are thinner shelled or what, but I've learned to pop my eggs into a bowl before I add them to a recipe. I used to always just crack them on the side of the bowl and put them in, but sometimes you get shells that way. And I never used to have that problem, so I don't know what's going on with the eggs, but we're going to add those 2 eggs right into that mixer. You guys can see my very dated countertops. My very dated kitchen. This house was built in the late 70s or early 80s. And I'm dying to remodel, but it's just an expensive venture. I miss my kitchen back in Missouri. Okay, got that mixed up so okay, so now everything's in here except for the yeast water and the flour. So we're going to start adding those things. And the flour, you just add a cup at a time. And I'm going to tell you, I'm one to have flour flying. And I even have a collar to put over my mixer. Maybe I should put that on there and see if I can avoid flour flying everywhere. We'll try it and see. I don't use it very often. Okay, it's one of those things I had to have and then ended up not using. Let's scroll down and see if I have any. I am so grateful to Carla right here. Hi, Ashley. Hi, Rachel. Hi, Rachel. Rachel made the cutest sign. Oh my gosh, I got her cute sign. And everybody says it looks like Cartman from South Park, and I didn't know who that was. And I made a real quirky wreath with that sign. I love it. Okay, cup one. Here we go. So we're just going to start mixing. And I'll go slow. And while that's mixing in, I'll measure out cup two. Now, this recipe takes 6 to 7 cups of flour, and I can't tell you how to be exact because when you do water like this, you never know. You might have a little extra, so it might be a little wetter. Look how puffy that is. You see? It was way down here, and it's up here now. So I'm going to go ahead and add a little at a time. So I will just alternate my flour and my water. And then when I'm still getting flour everywhere. And then when I get toward the end, I'll switch to the dough hook and we'll just rev this puppy up and let it knead the dough for us. And here in a couple minutes, it'll be ready to put in a bowl to rise, and we'll get working on our buns and cinnamon rolls. My family's excited because I told them what I was doing today, and they, oh, cinnamon rolls. They don't get those very often, and I just poured flour all over my mixer. Oh, well. All that yeast in there. The better it gets worked in, the more it activates, the faster it works. So now we're just going to keep adding the flour until we have enough to the right consistency. I am going to slow it down because I don't want flour to fly too much. I've already had that happen once today. I had a big mess to clean up. And see, it's still flying. Collars are not perfect. As you can see, there's really not much to this. Every time I make mashed potatoes for a dinner, I make extra. I save the water, put it in a jar, put it in the fridge, and then I always make extra so I have 1 cup left to make my dough. Now, make sure you don't put pepper in them when you do that because you definitely don't want pepper in your dough. But that's what I do. So I typically have some potato water and mashed potatoes on hand to make my dough. And if you've got that part, you got it licked. Okay, let's see where we're at. Oh, I don't think we need much more flour. Now, this is not like bread. you know, bread, you want a real stiff dough, and then you poke your fingers in it until the dents stay, you know, or else bounce back, or I forget the rule. I don't make bread much. You don't want to do that. This, the rule of thumb is the stickier it is, the harder it is to work with, the better they taste. So once you get used to working with it really sticky, then that's really what you want. Let's see what we got here. Push all this down and put that dough hook in. Now I'll warn you, if you got your kids around, my son's 45. And just turned 45 the other day, as a matter of fact, Wednesday. And he loves roll dough. So if I ever have roll dough in my fridge, he's always going in, lifting the foil off of it and taking a snatch. Because he loves the taste of the raw roll dough. It's not bad, I tell you, it's not bad. Okay. I'm going to put the hook on. Scrape down the sides of my bowl. I'm not sure I'm going to use that last cup of flour, but I will definitely use it on my pastry cloth, so it's not going to waste for sure. Lock this puppy, and we're going to ramp it up to the highest speed. Now, I will tell you, don't go off and leave this. You never want to go off and leave your mixer, especially if it's on high speed. It'll walk right off the counter. My sister, who made my apron, this was hers, God rest her soul, and she made me one too. I can't find mine. Okay, now as this mixes in, let me show you what we have, if you can see. It's definitely softer and stickier. And it's actually not too bad, but I'm going to add a little bit more of this flour. I don't want it to be too sticky. We'll start out slow so it doesn't fly too much. So I want to ask you, have any of you known anybody who has painted their countertops? I keep hearing that they have this paint, and after I've seen it, that looks like granite, that you can paint your countertops. Again, I'm sure obviously it's going to take several steps because it's going to be several colors. But I know, I've been told that there are people who actually did it and it worked great. So if you know of anybody who's actually done that, or if you have done that, please let me know. Send me a message. I'd like to know, because I would dearly love to get rid of the unsure grain. Okay, we're just going to let that be. And in the meantime, I'm going to get out my bowl. I'm going to grease this glass bowl to put my dough in. Oh, I have a mess. Like this up. No, he's walking. soapy water, otherwise it's going to be really hard to clean. Because I got potatoes right on it. Okay, so let's grease this bowl. I can get my hands right in there. You want it well greased because you sure don't want your dough sticking to it. Get back there, baby. You can't fall off. My sister told me one time how she was making dough and she left the room, left the meeting, and she came back and she heard a crash. She came back and the mixer walked right off the counter onto her floor. We don't want to do that. I'll hold it down here. Okay. Now I have beat it for as long as 5 minutes. I don't know that that's necessary. But remember, this is doing your kneading for you. Wash this off my hands. Okay. Come on, baby. Come on. Do you talk to your appliances? I talk to everything. Talk to myself. So here we have this nice sticky dough. And it's all well blended, all well kneaded. You figure every turn of a mixer, I don't know how many turns it turns in a minute on high speed, but when you consider that it's a lot faster than hand kneading, I'm sure it doesn't really need 5 minutes. So now I'm just going to take this and it's going to go into this nice greased bowl. Oh, that's what that was. The ring fell off my mixer into my dough. Okay. That's the where you add attachments for grinding meat and stuff. I don't do those things. I don't have those attachments. When I heard that clunk, I wondered what that was. The vibration unscrewed it. So that goes in the sink too. Okay, now, I don't know why I just did that. See your dough right here? You want to take it and flip it over so that the grease side is up. See, it's all nice and greased on the top of the dough. Then, look at this. This is amazing. I've never had it rise like this. I don't think ever. It is so puffy. So this is definitely what I wanted because I wanted it to be ready to work with to show you how to do the buns and everything. And it is so light. So, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this towel that was on top of the dough and I'm going to rinse it out because it's got a little dough stuck to it. Make it hot. You want a hot, damp towel on top of your dough. And so I'm rinsing it in hot water. Wring it out really good because you're not wanting to add moisture. You're wanting to keep it moist because if you put your dough in your refrigerator or leave it on the counter uncovered, it'll dry out and get crusty on the top. You don't want that. So now what I've done is I'm laying it right down on top of that dough, and it's damp. Then I'm going to take the foil, put it down over it, and that helps hold the heat in. Now, if I were going to use this dough today, I would go ahead and set it back on the counter like I had this other batch and let it rise for a couple hours, and then it would be ready to use. But instead, I'm going to pop it in my fridge, and it'll be ready, and it'll stay in the fridge good for 2 to 3 days, and actually good for 3. You don't want to go longer than 3. It might start to sour on you. So I'm going to pop this into the fridge, and it will actually rise in the fridge. So there it is. Okay. So now, the first thing I'm going to show you, get rid of all this mess. First thing I'm going to show you is how I make my sandwich buns. I always have buns on hand for Thanksgiving night or for the next 2 or 3 days for turkey sandwiches left over, because I always do turkey. They work just as well with ham. I'm going to push this out of the way. We're done with the mixer. Wipe off my mess. I'm done with the sugar. I've got the flour here. It's all a process, huh? So I'm going to get a baking sheet out. I use the air bake sheets, and this one's very old, probably 30, maybe 35 years. And I'm going to grease it. But these buns, oh my gosh. My favorite sandwich is a homemade bun, a little butter, some white meat turkey, and a slather of homemade jelly cranberry sauce. Oh, yum. Makes the best sandwich. So I make buns. You can make them in dollar size like they sell in the store, and I've done that. In fact, I had a friend who had twins that were having their first, they were being confirmed in the Catholic Church. And they always had a big, big party. And I made a bunch of dollar buns and took them over to her. I wasn't even invited to the party, but I took the buns. I didn't really know the girls, but she was a friend of mine from work, and I wanted them to have them. Another here, grease your hands good when you work with the dough. Just grab a bunch, and you just start forming it into a ball. Now, the secret, of course, is the size of your ball is going to determine the size of your roll. And if you want a big sandwich bun, you want to use a little more. And, of course, the bigger they are, the more dough they take, so the fewer you will have. But this is about the right size, if you can see. I'm showing it to my computer, not to the camera, silly me. Okay, so I just put that down on the grease sheet there and go for more. And you want to make sure they're not too close together, because you don't want them running into one another. And but I try to be as uniform as I can. Hair's stuck in my face. So that's probably a good space. You want, if you're making them big, these will turn out pretty big. So if you're making them big, you'll only get about 12 on a sheet. Maybe not even that many. And it won't hurt if they run up to the sides, you know, side up to each other. That one's just, let's see, move that one a little bit that way. That one's a little bit small. Just add a little more. Now this won't take very long, and as soon as we get these done, and we'll get them over to rise. Don't want to put these in the fridge to rise. You just want to set them aside and let them rise in a warm place. I typically put mine in my oven. That way I feel like they're staying clean. Yeah, I'm going to get 12 on this cookie sheet, so that'll be good. Now I'll pop these when they're done. When they come out of the oven, you want to take a stick of butter and just roll it over the top of it to kind of keep the tops moist, and it just adds a little sheen. So you just take some butter, and I just keep it in the paper rub it over the ends of the buns right out of the oven, and then when they're fully cooled, I can put them into a Tupperware container or a big gallon Ziploc bag or something and pop them in the freezer. And that's what I will do, because, you know, Thanksgiving's still Thursday, and I don't want them, if you put them in them, just leave them and don't freeze them, they'll dry out, or even, I don't think they would mildew, but they wouldn't be as fresh. They'd be fresher if you just freeze them. Now you can see how sticky this dough is, but I'll tell you, you can still form it well. And you just want a nice little ball. I need more shortening in my hands. So And here in a couple of minutes, I'll show you how I do I make Parkerhouse Dinner Rolls. A little goes a long way with those. And they're yummy. And they're smaller, so they take up less room on a plate. And they got butter on them, so people already have a buttered roll. But then I always have extra butter to put on them too. These rolls do not need jam. And every time, I always put jam out just in case, always. I don't know why I do that, because nobody ever uses it, but I always have it out anyway. My family has always said, Mom, you don't need to make everything else, just make the turkey and the rolls. That's all we need. But, if you see, oh shoot, back in my oven, I've got my croutons in my oven. I make my own croutons for my stuffing. So I've got them drying out in the oven, all seasoned up. I got some day-old sourdough bread and cut it in cubes and seasoned it with onion and celery salt, salt and pepper, sage, marjoram, and thyme. Marjoram and thyme make everything heavenly. If you haven't discovered those two spices, I encourage you to use them. They make everything better. If you're making vegetable soup, add some marjoram and thyme. Making chicken noodles, add marjoram and thyme. Making stew, add marjoram and thyme. They are two magic spices that add a richness unlike anything else. And so, like I said, they're now I don't put them in. I don't put it in chili. I do put the thyme in my spaghetti, but not the marjoram. But boy, are they wonderful spices. So just 2 more, and then we'll be ready to do some rolls. And some cinnamon rolls. So you can see this really doesn't take that long. You just need to make sure that your dough has risen fully one time. And it's not like bread. You don't have to let it rise, punch it down, let it rise again. Just one rise. And like I said, usually I let it rise in the fridge, punch it down and start forming. I will make one more batch of dough. Probably Tuesday, so that Thanksgiving Day I will have my fresh. I need to add a little more dough to that one. Thanksgiving Day I will have fresh rolls. Although with this other batch I would have enough to make them and freeze them ahead, and then just warm them up in foil. I could do that. Okay, so these are going to go in the oven. Excuse me, the oven is not turned on, and you want to make sure you don't turn your oven on. Oh, yeah, that'll work. The oven's warm, because I heated it up to let my dough rise. Okay, so now I need my pastry cloth. I need to dry that off a little bit. That counter's a little wet from when I wiped it off. So here's my big pastry cloth. Let me see if I can zoom down so you can see a little better. There's the pastry cloth. This is my grandmother's rolling pin. And it looked about like this when I was a kid. And my grandmother was born in 1898. So that should tell you how old this rolling pin is. And so I just put a sock over it. You will definitely need a pastry cloth and a sock. There's no way you're going to be able to roll this dough out without a sock. It's just too sticky. So I'm just going to flour this pastry cloth, rub it in good, and then roll that rolling pin really good into that flour. You want to get that sock good and coated with flour. Okay, now I've got some butter here to melt. Microwaves are wonderful for melting butter and stuff. Okay. Now here's my dough, and I'm going to pick this up and just use a knife to cut through it. I'm not going to do a whole lot right now because I don't need dinner rolls for 2 people. But I'm just going to do this just to show you how I make my Parkerhouse rolls. Oh, my butter. Oh, dear. I have a butter mess in the microwave. It went over the lip. What you doing, Sprite, huh? You don't understand, do you? My biscuit cutter, and I need a pan to put these in. I'm just going to use this small little 8x8, you can see here, and I will grease it. You want to grease everything so it doesn't stick. So now I'm just going to roll this out, and it will bounce back on you because it's got a lot of yeast in it, and it wants to do that. I'm going to flip it over once. Now, since these are going to be Parkerhouse rolls, you want it relatively thin. You don't want it too thick or they'll pop open on you. So then we just take the biscuit cutter, rub that in the flour. You just cut rounds. Now, I need a bowl. I can't do this in a measuring cup. I need a bowl. So I'm just going to pour some of this butter into this little bowl. Just take that biscuit round that it's not biscuit, the roll round. Dip that right into the butter. I take a knife right in half, fold it over, and put it into my into my baking pan. Right like this. And these are Parkerhouse rolls. And you can see they're not very large, but 2 or 3 of these per person is plenty for Thanksgiving. And a little goes a long way. As you can see, you'll make a whole lot. So if you're having a big crowd especially, this is the best way to make rolls for a large crowd. This is Parkerhouse rolls. So I'll just roll this out some more. And we're almost, you've seen the sandwich buns, you've seen the Parkerhouse rolls, and the next thing is the yummy cinnamon rolls. And that's the best part. Yeah, boy, is this man going to be lucky man. I'm going to figure out what to fix for dinner to go with these homemade dinner rolls. He's going to be thrilled to have those. I have enough for one more out of there, I think. Yes, you can take your dough after you're done like this, and you have a little extra if you want to add it back to the bowl. You can. It won't hurt anything. I didn't get that fully rounded, though. Doesn't have to be perfect. Okay. So now, I'll just set that right in there. So now I'm going to cover this. Put it on the stove, and I'll let those rise. I don't want those to rise too fast because I'm not ready for that yet. So now it's cinnamon roll time. So let me get some more flour on my pastry cloth. I need to finish melting my butter. And now I need to get out a pan to grease to put them in. I prefer glass. I always use glass for these. They don't get as brown on the bottom. So okay. Wash my hands yet again. I always have a dispenser with Dawn in my kitchen for getting grease off. And I always have a dispenser with just hand soap. So I have a pumpkin with hand soap and an owl with Dawn. Okay, so I'm going to dust this, grease this pan. If you have your pan greased before you start, it makes it a lot easier. Hey, Edie, I'm glad to see you there. I'm not ignoring you guys. Carla is moderating for me, so thankfully, I love Carla. Oh my gosh, and Carla makes the most beautiful things. She's One Stop Boutique, so if you want to see some absolutely gorgeous creations, beautiful bows, you definitely want to check out Carla Young. She lives in Podunk, Utah, right? She lives somewhere out in the boonies in Utah. I got to meet her at the Wreath Makers Live convention. It was so wonderful to meet her and so many other people. And Rachel Gatelin, I know. Anyway, Rachel's on here. She has Rachel's Crafty Corner, and she makes handmade signs that are so cute. So if you're a wreather or just like cute things or know somebody, if you want to go buy signs and send them to your favorite wreather, I have people do that. I'm just cutting off some dough here, and I'm just going to, this is a pretty decent size piece of dough that I'm putting down here on my pastry cloth. Pastry cloths are hard to find anymore, and the ones you find, if you can find them in the stores, they're pretty small. So I usually have to order mine. I have one over in that I almost was going to use today, and it's all raveled around the edges because it's about 40 years old. So as you see, I'm just stretching my dough out a little bit here. I want it to shape into sort of a rectangle, so I'm just stretching it out before I roll it. Get a little more flour on my rolling pin, and we're just going to roll this dough out as much as we can. Take that edge and cut that off. Add it over here, roll it in. Like I said, I want a rectangle. And it won't be a perfect rectangle. When you're working with yeast dough, it's hard to do that. If I had a stretcher like the pizza makers do, but I don't. So I'm going to cut this edge off and bring that up here because I want this corner to be a little more squared off. This is actually not a whole lot right here, so I will make 2 batches. I will fill in that little hole right there. There we go. Okay, so this is pretty good. Not a perfect rectangle, but it's close enough. So now what I'm going to do is it's raising up there on the edges. I want that to be a little flatter. Now a little bit more. The thinner you roll your dough, you don't want to paper thin, but the thinner you roll it, the gooier they are because the more turns there are in them. So now I'm just going to pour melted butter on it. After you do this, you will need to wash your pastry cloth. Anytime you use melted butter. But typically I don't wash my pastry cloth with every use. I just wrap it up and put it away and keep it. And after 2 or 3 uses, then I'll wash it. Because you kind of got to wash it alone because you don't want all that flour and gunk. You know what happens, flour and water turns to paste. Okay, so there's the melted butter. The next thing we're going to do is, now I have my brown sugar. Here it is. brown sugar. This is the brown sugar container that has this little brick in it that's supposed to keep it from turning hard. I just got it, and guess what? The sugar up against the brick is as hard as a rock. So that didn't work very well. So I'm just going to sprinkle this over. You want to spread this out. You want nice, good brown sugar. You don't want sugar that's white sugar that's been dyed to be brown. You want real brown sugar. This is light brown sugar. Sometimes I use dark. But you want a nice, even coating of brown sugar. Yeah, I'm going to have to soak that brick in there and see if I can't. Okay, now, cinnamon. I have some, not much left, Vietnamese cinnamon. I don't know what's more special about that, but I like it. So you just want a good dose of cinnamon, just a good sprinkle. You don't want so much that it's bitter, because you know too much can be bitter, and that's why you have enough brown sugar to make sure it's not. But you just want a nice, evenly sprinkle with the cinnamon. And if you see where it's concentrated a little bit too much, just kind of rub it in, rub it around. Now, this is the perfection. This is cardamom, the best spice in the world for cinnamon rolls. Most people have never heard of it or used it, and it is a little bit pricey, but a little goes a long way. I also have cardamom seeds, and I have a mortar and pestle. And sometimes I will grind my own seeds and into the cardamom to use, but the ground cardamom works great, and it's a lot easier to see what you're doing when you can sprinkle it out of a sprinkler. So I just lightly sprinkle this over on top of the cinnamon, and as you can see, it's getting lighter. You can see where you've been. You don't want too much, again, too much of any spice and it'll go bitter, but you just want a nice even covering of cardamom. And that's it. That's it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take this and start rolling it up. Just start across, just gently. And as I roll, I pull it in. You see I'm pulling it toward me. I promise you, you have these for breakfast Christmas morning. Oh my gosh. Now my father, these are the richest things, but my father, God love him, he thought they needed additional sweetening. I don't know why, because these suckers are so sweet. But he would make icing, like buttercream icing, and put them on top. So you have all this ooey gooey and then icing on top. I'm going to get me a better knife. I'm going to use my nice serrated bread knife. Now I'll cut off that one. That one won't be much good because it's so tiny. So, and my kids would eat that raw one. I want to pinch this together as much as possible. See, it's not going to stick. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start putting my fingers into that butter. And pinching this dough to hold it together. You don't want your cinnamon rolls coming apart in the pan, right? Because they're going to puff up so pretty and big, and then you'll bake them at 350 for about 12 minutes, just like your buns. Now you want to watch them because you don't want them to get too brown. And I will caution you, do not put these into a dark Teflon pan because they'll get too dark. You don't want to do that. Okay, now I've got them good and together. So I'm just going to start scoring these so they're about the right size. That way they're I want to make sure they're about the same in height. You don't want a bunch of high-low, you know, little. So I'm just going to cut through that crunchy, crunchy brown sugar. I'm going to have to figure that out. This is the first time I've used that sugar keeper, and that wet brick should have kept it from getting dried out. I've never had it do that, so I may have to find me some good Tupperware again. Oh, hush. Nobody asked you. Nobody asked for your opinion. No. My Shih Tzu. Okay, so here we go. Start laying these into my baking dish. Now these you do want to have cook up against each other, because when you take them out of the oven, you're going to turn them upside down onto foil. So make sure you've got your big foil laid out and ready. Make sure it's large enough to wrap up over them. So all you'll do is when you take them out, you don't want to leave them in the pan. You want to flip them out onto the foil and allow them to cool. Be careful. It's going to be very enticing to want to get the goo out of the bottom of the pan. There's no easier way to burn the skin off your finger if you do that. You don't want to do that. So, and look at that. We had just enough. Just a perfect number. I don't know how I planned that. I actually didn't plan that. It just worked out. Now I'm going to shape them back into a little bit more of a round. But as they rise up, they are going to be perfectly rounded and beautiful. Now these I will put a towel over. I have 3 dogs in my way. 3 doggies under my feet. Thus you don't have to dampen. I'll just lay it across and set it over here to rise. So that's it. We have made roll dough. We have made dinner sandwich buns. We've made Parkerhouse Dinner Rolls. And we have made cinnamon rolls. And guess what? It hasn't even been an hour. How about that? So the only advantage I had was I had my potatoes mashed and my water there measured. So you see, you can do an awful lot in a short time. And believe me, trust me, you will never want to have another holiday dinner or family meal without them. I often make these to take when I'm invited, like next Friday, my daughter-in-law's family is having their Thanksgiving because some of their family's working on Thursday. So they've invited me to join them. So I will be taking dinner rolls to Florence for their Thanksgiving dinner. And they make a wonderful thing to take along. People love them, and they're easy to put in foil, warm up in the oven for a few minutes, and there's nobody going to say no to one of these. I'm going to scroll down. Let me wash my hands one more time. Then I'm going to scroll down to see if we have any questions before we close. And then I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be doing some creating in the craft room. You're not much for biscuits, Sue. You know, I like good homemade biscuits, but they have to be good buttermilk biscuits. Yes, the cinnamon rolls are awesome. Oh, Edie, these make the best cinnamon rolls, and now I'm going to have some for Thanksgiving morning, too. Oh, Rachel, no, you're painting. Rachel paints nonstop, so that you don't have to don't apologize for being quiet. Oh, hi, Lavon. I am so glad. Joanne, Linda. Where do I order my cloths from? Amazon. They have them on Amazon, and you can get big ones, too. Now, I have some silicone ones. I'm not too happy with them regarding the dinner rolls. I don't think the dough works as well. The dough works much better on a true pastry cloth. So you can get it from Amazon, and they always come with a sock. So Vietnamese cinnamon is amazing. Yes, it is. I found it quite by accident. Oh my gosh, they are so good. Now I'll tell you, these will be ready to bake. Oh, they smell heavenly. Oh my gosh, they smell so wonderful. The dog wants them. Yeah, the dogs definitely want some. gingerbread cookies. I need to make some of those. I'm going to make molasses crinkles. I love the crispy molasses crinkles, so I'm going to make those. Oh, I am so happy you joined me. You have no idea. Let me raise my camera up. Oh, I didn't get it up enough. Okay. I have always wanted to do a cooking show. I've always played around when I was cooking on my own, nobody home, pretending I was talking to the camera saying you do this and you do that and you do this. And so I finally got to do it, and I hope you enjoyed it. And I really hope you made them along with me, or if you didn't do that, I hope you'll try them, because believe me, they're worth every bit of the effort, and you will not be sorry, except that everybody will be saying from now on, are you making the rolls? Are you making the rolls? Oh, you got to make the rolls. Please bring the rolls. That's all you'll hear. So today's Saturday. I have my live on Tuesday night. I might try to squeak one in before then. I am spending this weekend getting my house clean for Thanksgiving, and getting my Christmas tree. It's up, but it's not decorated, and trying to get some of Christmas done, because as you know, it's the busiest time of year. And this year, we have 6 fewer days between Thanksgiving and Christmas. So people are going to have a fall wreath on the door and a Christmas tree in the entryway when they come into my house. But so I don't know if I'll get a live snuck in or not. But if I don't, I'll see you Tuesday night for Do It To It Tuesday, 6 p.m. Central Time. If I decide to sneak one in before that, if you have messaged me, put it in the comment section. Make sure you put live alert, and my bot will notify you when I go live. And you can come watch, or you can catch the replay. Either way. Thank you so much for joining me in my humble kitchen and watching me as I made one of my favorite things in the world. It's been wonderful to have you. Thank you, Carla, for moderating. I love all of you, and I wish you the happiest of Thanksgivings. Bye-bye.